There's news, there's sense, and there's nuisance. This show is all about that last bit. Welcome to a very special TV nuisance live show. We're going to be doing a live show for about 40 minutes today because we think that every once in a while, every month or every once in 2 months, we should do a live interaction with our audience where you guys can ask us questions. We can discuss an issue that's important, that's raging. We can do a little more than what we do every week, which is dhlai of TV news channels and TV news anchors. So that's the agenda of this week's TV nuisance. One thing that I really want to discuss is the situation for Hindus in Bangladesh. This has been the top news for the past 2 weeks at least. There's been a lot of reporting in Indian media. There's been a lot of conversations around it. So we want to do a one show which is completely focused on what's happening to Hindus in Bangladesh. We have a special guest who will be joining us in a bit to talk a little bit about it. He's been to Bangladesh, so I think he can bring us lots of good insights on what's really happening there. Before we begin the show, I want to tell you guys that we made a lot of effort to get a Hindu, maybe staying in Dhaka or even Chittagong, student or someone from the Hindu community to talk about how they're feeling, what's happening, what we are hearing on the news, how correct is it, what is their understanding of the situation. But we couldn't get anyone because the situation is very tricky right now. A lot of them feel that coming on an Indian media platform right now may not be very good for them because the situation is tense there. You can be easily branded as a traitor if you're talking about the rights of minorities in Bangladesh right now. You can be branded as anti-national if you're talking about the plight of minorities right now in Bangladesh. So they were very worried and said, we don't want to come on video. But we asked one of them that even if you don't want to come on video, can you send us a message and we can read it out to our audience so that we have some first person view, of what's really happening to minorities there from a Hindu that we can talk about. So I'm just going to start with that note that came to us. And we said that we'll read this note out to our TV nuisance audience who can understand a little bit with this note. So I'm not going to name who it is, but this is a person living in Bangladesh and they're Hindu. So the note says, Hindus in Bangladesh are unsure of their future. There's a lot of hate being spewed openly online. Most of it is under the guise of retaliation against Indian media propaganda. All of this is scary. There's this portrayal of Hindus in Bangladesh as Hasina supporters, and many Hindus fear that this might be used as a tool against them. The media is focusing on banning ISKCON. This is the Bangladeshi media there. They're talking a lot about banning ISKCON, branding it as an extremist organization. The Bangladeshi media is villainizing Hindus indirectly, given how significant percentage of Bangladeshi Hindus adhere to ISKCON and the Hare Krishna movement. It's indirectly imposing the narrative. This is the media. The Bangladeshi media is indirectly imposing the narrative that devout Hindus who are outspoken about their faith, or for example, devout Hindus who wear tilaks, they are extremists. So, aap kapdo se pehchan sakte hain sort of narrative where anyone who's wearing a tilak or anyone who's, professing their faith publicly is being branded as an extremist right now in Bangladesh. The Bangladeshi media's version of the ideal Hindu citizen is one who denounces India. So if you are a Hindu in Bangladesh, you have to keep saying, India is bad, India is bad, India is bad. That is your test of patriotism in Bangladesh. And you have to conform to Bangladeshi nationalism before your faith. So before being a Hindu, say you're a Bangladeshi nationalist. That's what Hindus are going through right now. The note says that basically they're saying that anyone who doesn't do this, they're playing victim card or they're Hasina supporters. So if you are not shouting from the top of your voice that you are a Bangladeshi nationalist and Bangladeshi before being a Hindu, you're being branded as, an extremist. And if you talk about the plight of what Hindus are going through, they say that, don't use your victim card and you're a Hasina supporter. The arrest of the spokespersons of Sanatan Jagran Manch, Chinmoy Krishna Das, on flimsy grounds. I'm continuing with the note, by the way, if there's any confusion, this is what the note is saying. The arrest of the spokesperson of the Sanatan Jagran Manch, Chinmoy Krishna Das, on flimsy grounds, the issue of saffron flag being hoisted higher than the Bangladesh flag and calling it sedition is not sitting right with many Hindus either. So this is a very important context that this note has given. Uh, the arrest of Chinmay Krishnadas, we all know about it now. It has been reported 24/7 on Indian television news also. We know he was a former member of ISKCON. Basically, he was charged with sedition because the allegation was that the saffron flag that they flew in their protest was higher than the Bangladeshi flag. So again, you are not a nationalist and you're not Bangladeshi enough because your religious flag, which is your saffron flag, is, it's it's hoisted higher than the Bangladeshi flag. So you're insulting the Bangladeshi flag. And so he was charged with sedition and put behind bars. And the note says that this is not sitting right with many Hindus here. They're worried about this. The general opinion regarding India among Bangladeshis is bad. And even that would be an understatement. Anti-India sentiments are growing by the day, often extending to anti-Hindu sentiments as well. That's the end of the note. Basically, what they're saying is that what the note really tells you is that this under the garb of anti-India sentiment, Hindus in Bangladesh are having to prove their patriotism. They have to prove that they stand with the nation first, and they're Hindus second. They also with the sedition charge is very worrying for Hindus there. And one thing very important, I think, that this note underlines is that you have to prove your patriotism, and any public display of your faith, for example, like he said, Tilak, or you're following ISKCON, that can easily make you branded as a terrorist or as an extremist. So that's the current situation in Bangladesh. This is a note from a Hindu there. So it's first-hand account of what Hindus are going through. I think it's very important to put that out before we put anything else, because they are the ones who are at the receiving end right now. And the note also emphasized that anyone right now who's raising their voice for minorities or raising their voice against injustice to Hindus or against temple vandalization, they're being called victim. Like, don't play your victim card. यहाँ पे victim card मत चलाओ, और यहाँ पे सब ठीक है. और अगर आपने हिंदुओं की बात करी तो आप हसीना एजेंट हैं या आप इंडियन एजेंट हैं. So that's the current situation. We're going to have a very senior journalist from the Hindu join us in a bit, who will tell us more about that, who's traveled there. Before we do that, before we get into a conversation on what's happening in Bangladesh with our special guest, I just want to remind you guys that News Laundry is a completely ad-free enterprise. I know that I say this a lot in our shows, every show of TV Newsance. We talk about how News Laundry is ad-free, why we do not take any ads from corporations or from governments. Everything जो हम इलेक्शन रिपोर्टिंग करते हैं, रिपोर्ट्स करते हैं. संभल की अभी हमने एक बहुत अच्छी रिपोर्ट करी, अवधेश ने करी, बहुत लोगों ने देखा कि संभल में क्या हुआ, बहुत ही डिटेल ग्राउंड रिपोर्ट थी. वो भी हमने बिल्कुल एड फ्री करी. मतलब उसमें कोई आपको विज्ञापन नहीं दिखेगा कि बीच से पतंजलि घी का एड है या मोदी जी का एड है या केजरीवाल जी का एड है. सो वी आर कंप्लीटली एड फ्री एंटरप्राइज, एंड वी फील अगर हम किसी से एड्स नहीं लें तो हम बहुत फ्रीली अपना काम कर सकते हैं. क्योंकि अगर आपको कोई गवर्नमेंट एड देती है या कोई कॉर्पोरेशन एड देता है, वो एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि एड के बदले आपको फेवरेबल रिपोर्टिंग मिले. अगर फेवरेबल रिपोर्टिंग ना भी मिले तो अगर हमारे खिलाफ कुछ आ रहा हो वो ना दिखे, वो दब जाए. सो टू अवॉइड दैट मॉडल ऑफ न्यूज, सिंस 2012, not recently, since 2012, News Laundry has been completely ad free, because we believe अगर लोग हमारे सब्सक्राइबर्स हमारी जर्नलिज्म को सपोर्ट करें तो हमारा जवाबदेही सिर्फ हमारे सब्सक्राइबर्स तक रहेगी. तो फिर आप लोग हमें बोल सकते हैं कि भाई आपने ये रिपोर्टिंग गंदी करी, आप ये क्यों नहीं दिखाते हैं, या आप यहाँ क्यों नहीं जाते हैं, या हम चाहते हैं कि न्यूज लॉन्ड्री और ऐसी रिपोर्टिंग करे. सो आर आंसरेबिलिटी, that's not a word, answerability is not a word, but our responsibility would be towards our subscribers, and that is very important to us. So you can see a QR code right now on your screen. If you scan that QR code, you will be able to subscribe to News Laundry. I'll tell you about the benefits of subscribing to News Laundry, because you get a lot of content. It's not just that we are asking you to help us out of goodwill. When you subscribe to us, you also get a lot of perks. You get a lot of amazing things, but I'll just get into quickly. But I just want to say that you guys, please subscribe to News Laundry. Over the last few months, our subscriptions have dipped. And when our subscriptions dip, it's very difficult for us to continue to do what we're doing. Even a show like Newsance, I will not be able to continue to do अगर हमें subscriptions ना मिले, because Newsance में रिसोर्सेज जाते हैं, टीम है, सब कुछ है, एक पैसा लगता है एक शो बनाने में. तो अगर वो हमें सब्सक्राइबर्स सपोर्ट ना करें तो न्यूसेंस जैसे शोज, टिप्पणी जैसे शोज, इनकी फ्रीक्वेंसी कम होते जाएगी और हम बहुत मुश्किल से अपना काम कर पाएंगे. सो आई वुड रियली अर्ज यू गाइज टू प्लीज सब्सक्राइब टू न्यूज लॉन्ड्री. When you subscribe to News Laundry, you can get cool merchandise like this cup that I have that says Bhakt, hashtag Bhakt and proud. See, we don't discriminate. You can be a libtard, you can be a Bhakt, you can be whatever. On News Laundry, you'll get a mug for yourself. So you can get merchandise like this. You get access to our paywalled content. That's the most important thing. When you subscribe, we have a lot of stuff which is behind the paywall, like interviews, like our weekly podcast, like deep dive podcast. We have one podcast on Punjab right now. So all of that you can access if you subscribe to News Laundry, paywall stuff. So you can support us, but you also get free stuff. So just before we get into our talking to our special guest who's here with us to talk about Bangladesh, I want to show a quick clip of the latest interview Abhinandan Sekhri has done with Shehla Rashid. This interview is behind the paywall. If you subscribe, you can watch this interview. It will be free for you only if you're a subscriber. Let's just quickly show the promo.
It's fine if your view is that Muslims bear the burden of being anti-establishment because I don't know why. You can explain it better.
That's not what I said.
For me, for some people, they believe that the only good Muslim is either a dead Muslim or a jailed Muslim.
You put words in my mouth there. I did not say that it is the burden of the Muslim to oppose.
You wouldn't have asked me this question if the book was about Hindus.
Okay, you'll have to let me complete my sentences like I let you complete yours. Because like I said, this is the News Laundry studio. And that is how we converse here. This is not Republic, this is not Time Now, this is not Aaj Tak. Now that you've asked everybody, what is your prognosis? What will make us Viksit Bharat?
My own, now if you're asking my position and not other people's position,
based on what
am I
you've
allowed
spoken.
to answer, as myself?
Yeah, but you said you asked everybody.
Because I tried to answer and you scoffed and you were like, Shehla, please don't. So if you're just going to scoff at it, then I won't be able to answer.
Well, I didn't scoff at it, but
I mean, you
no
did,
promises.
yeah.
But it depends on your answer. If the answer, according to me, doesn't make mathematics, I will challenge it. Of course I will. That's normal.
But you have
right?
to allow me to answer.
Of course, go ahead. I'm
As
not
I'm
stopping
allowing
you.
you to ask any questions that you want.
I haven't stopped you.
I mean, you did when you were just in the middle of it. Oh, Shehla, like I don't like this. It's not my problem if you don't like it, buddy. When do you think this Hindu-Muslim problem started in India?
It's been there
Since
way
when?
beyond. I'd say ever since the two communities have existed.
So let's not
If you would-
pretend that it has, come in or it has started only after a certain government has come, or only after, like you showed me this ad, which I watched very patiently. But I want to ask you a question, Abhinandan. Was India divided on religious lines?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was divided on Islamic lines.
Which is
Because
a religion.
So that was our interview. You can watch it if you subscribe to News Laundry. Welcome, Kallol Bhattacharjee. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Kallol, of
Thank you
course,
so much.
and
Thank you so
journalist
much.
to the Hindu. Let's get right in, because before you came in, I was reading to the audience a note that we got from a Hindu in Bangladesh who basically emphasized and said that right now, anti-India sentiments are at an all-time high. And that has become anti-Hindu. That has led to anti-Hindu sentiments also. And anyone who's a Hindu today in Bangladesh has to prove that they're Bangladeshi first and Hindu later. So what, in your understanding, is happening currently? How can we fairly assess what is happening to the Hindus in Bangladesh right now?
Well, I have been arguing in various platforms that what is happening to the Hindus in Bangladesh is essentially a part of the problems that the whole of Bangladesh is facing. So, of course, because of the unique composition of the Indian population and the Indian state and Indian society, we naturally will look at what is happening to the minorities in Bangladesh, and that's okay to a certain extent. But to understand really what is happening to the Hindus in Bangladesh, we really have to go down to the larger context of the law and order breakdown that is happening in Bangladesh, which is proceeding side by side with the formation of a new political discourse which is being supported by the people who are in power. And by the people who are in, by this particular phrase, I am referring not just to Professor Muhammad Yunus and his advisors. I'm also referring to the student advisors, more specifically, who are basically the representatives of muscle power on the streets of Bangladesh that is propelling this particular interim government. So, because you have the law and order breakdown, which is calling for an administrative solution, but then the political discourse, which is basically positioning the new, if I can say, the elite, political elite of Bangladesh as the opponent or the antithesis of all the political groups, including the Awami League, including the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, and others who have governed it after the fall of President Irshad in 1990. So this is basically a negation of the politics of the last 30, 34, 35 years that we are witnessing, which is also proceeding side by side with the breakdown of the administration.
What do you make of the arrest of the priest, Chinmoy Krishna Das? And after that, two more priests were arrested. Apparently, according to what I read, they were on their way to jail to give food to Chinmoy Krishna Das. What do you make of this arrest, and why? And the charges, sometimes when you read, it says sedition for insulting the Bangladeshi flag, for hoisting the saffron flag higher than the Bangladeshi flag. It just seems to resonate so much with us here also in India.
Yes, yes, but we have to remember that the Bangladesh minorities traditionally have not been represented by priests. Bangladesh Hindu community, if I can say so, specifically, have found leadership from the people who came from legal profession, people who came from the academics, and people who came from, say, even political parties. The minorities have been represented in Bangladesh pretty much like all other groups in Bangladesh. They have been represented by, if I can say, non-priest or non-clergy people generally, because if you look at even the current leaders of the largest minority rights group, that is Bangladesh Hindu, Buddha, and Christian Council, Unity Parishad, as it is called. They all are like lawyers, doctors, engineers, businessmen. That is how they are. And what has happened in the last 35, or rather, if I can even go back in time to 1965, this particular group, which has been very active in protecting minority rights, they have been viewed as ineffective, because as a majoritarian society, and most of the South Asian countries are based out of majoritarian societies, Bangladesh also has long history of problems that have inflicted on the minority groups. And the expectation was always there that this particular traditional leaders would ensure safety for whatever, or at least justice in cases when the government had to step in. And they have serious complaints even about Sheikh Hasina's government, where this government also failed to deal with certain cases that had to be dealt with. So what happens here is that these young population, these young people, for example, Chinmay Das and others, these are basically, of course, they're priests, but they're also young people. I mean, one has to also look at their age. So they are becoming the more aggressive spokespersons for the rights of the minority groups. And there is obviously a sense of resurgence when it comes to the Hindu religion in neighboring India. That also has an impact. And then, most importantly, Bangladesh people, or Bangladesh viewers and Bangladesh readers, read Indian media and watch lots of Indian television, including the ones that are highly polarizing, and that also impacts them. And the Bangladesh politics, if you go to Dhaka, you will find people are most often discussing what is coming on Republic channel, Republic
In fact, even
News.
on our comments right now, a lot of people are just slamming Indian media. I'm guessing from Bangladesh.
Yes, and that is primarily because they have a lot at stake when it comes to India. India is the largest neighbor, the big market, and as well as economic partner. But the bilateral relation is now being largely defined by these TV channels that are actually very active even in the language medium in India, that is in Bangla. So they are radiating from their TV channels in Kolkata, perhaps, and they are being watched very heavily, and that is impacting the relationship to a great degree.
Hmm. But if we set the media aside, because there can be this argument that okay, there is the Indian media which has also put out fake news, like one video of a Sufi shrine being attacked, was circulated as a temple. But the counter can be that if you take that out of the equation, the misinformation or the hyperbole or the polarizing reporting that we are seeing in Indian media, the plight of Hindus in Bangladesh and that being bad remains as a fact. That we should not try and kind of negate that by pointing at what Indian media is doing. What would you say to that?
No, there is obviously no way to negate that because, as I said, the issue of discrimination against the minority groups in Bangladesh is not new. There are
Hmm.
particular documented cases that are still awaiting justice, and they will have to be dealt with by the government and the people of Bangladesh. And that pretty much, even the Yunus government, agrees to that. The issue,
Hmm.
however, is where is the law and order machinery inside Bangladesh? And as we are witnessing in the last 150 days, perhaps now, the law and order machinery in Bangladesh has broken down because of an internal power struggle. And that internal power struggle is going independent of the fact that the law and order machinery has broken down and they are not in a position to control. Or rather, they perhaps don't have the desire to control the breakdown as of now. So, I mean, there is no way to deny the fact that minorities have faced numerous, discriminatory incidents. There have been violence against minority women,
Hmm.
and the property rights of minority groups are not secured. This is a long-standing complaint from Hindus and Buddhists,
Hmm.
especially, and this has been in place. And Sheikh Hasina, in the latest online speech that she circulated, she in fact counted 4 churches were destroyed. And let us also not forget that when we talk about the minorities, the Sufi shrines of Bangladesh have been
Yes.
destroyed.
Yeah.
Several very old Sufi shrines. And when we land in Bangladesh, and the airport of Bangladesh is named after Shah Jalal, the great Sufi saint of Shah Jalal and Shah Paran. And after the advent of the Yunus government in Bangladesh, there have been almost daily protests in these very old Sufi shrines that they should stop the performance of music. So,
Wow.
so you can
That is very,
imagine.
and actually, I want to come to that. But before that, I would just want to ask you, like when this protest broke through and when Hasina, she had to flee to India, there was this sense that a student's protest, or maybe I was being naive, but that something that took its birth with students' protest would not lead to what has happened now. It could lead to like periods of anarchy, a little bit of instability, uncertainty. But you would imagine that students at the helm of this would at least call for peace among communities, would be progressive, would not want, things like this, what you're saying, like Sufi shrines, no singing and no. So, what do you make of that?
Well, there is a lot of bewilderment and there is a lot of surprise, even among
Hmm.
these student activists, among the leading intellectuals. And Bangladesh,
Because
particularly,
Hindu
takes.
students also joined the protests,
Yes,
We,
of
we
course, it
last
was
time we
a
were in touch with, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, the protest began from Dhaka University, and Dhaka University is traditionally a seat of left-leaning liberal student groups. And, an Army League essentially was a left-leaning party, and it remained so till very recently, till it was taken over perhaps by Sheikh Hasina's favorite businessmen and their supporters. But what we saw is that the students were very active in the protest, and there was a great deal of, if you look at the music, the kind of music that this sang, the songs that this played, they all were about Nazrul and the songs of the great music of 1920 and 21 non-cooperation movement of Mahatma Gandhi. Those were the songs that were sung on the streets of Dhaka to overthrow this government. So there was no expectation of communal behavior from the students, and so when this
Yeah.
started happening, and that is why there was a lot of surprise that when certain individuals, for example, extremists like from the groups like Ansarullah Bangla, certain activists with ties to Hizb ut-Tahrir, when they started coming out of prison, and when these militants started going to mazars and Sufi shrines, these shrines that we just discussed are like 600 and 700 years old shrines. These are not new shrines. So when they started going there and protesting, there was a lot of concern and a lot of surprise among the activists and intellectuals that what have we really unleashed? Because it appears like that they did not expect these forces to come out and then colonize the space that had been freed by the students with enormous sacrifice. So there is also another group which says that even within the students, there was a silent community of extremist ideologues who had been waiting for such an opportunity. And now that the liberal students have done the ultimate political act of overthrowing a tyrannical government, they have come out and they have basically flexed their muscles, and they are now trying to take over the liberal spaces.
So right now, would it be correct to say that there's a jostling between various interests, like the students, the left liberal sort of community, the extremists, the new political formations? So no one's really in control. It's kind of a situation of chaos.
Yes, it is a situation of chaos, but what happens in such a situation of chaos? Like, we can say with certain degree of confidence and experience that all democracies are works in progress, and all democracies have their movements, debates, discussions, disputes, sometimes even street protests, and fights in the parliaments and TV studios. But in all this, the formal structure of the bureaucracy and administration must hold strong. Because if the state stays intact, if the state maintains law and order, anarchy can be easily prevented. But what's happening in case of Bangladesh is that one of the first things that this particular interim government did is that it sent out a chilling message inside, or rather throughout the bureaucracy of Bangladesh, throughout the police and administration of Bangladesh. They carried out a large number of transfers and punishment postings in various wings of the police and law and order machinery, literally paralyzing them with fear. And that is not
Purge,
good,
sort of a purge, yes.
because you need everybody on board to some extent. You need the revolutionaries also on board to run a government, because you need to talk to them, you need to engage them. Just the way in India we have seen in the past, how even the governments have engaged various disgruntled groups, just to keep the affairs of the state going. But what is happening in case of Bangladesh is that perhaps Professor Yunus, who has an enlightened personality and a record, and many of his advisors are from the human rights background. But the message that the bureaucracy is getting, even now, after several months of the overthrow of the Hasina government, is that they should be very, very careful before lifting a finger. So that is posing a big trouble, because when you have huge crowd killing a student for nearly half a day, or there is a lynching going on in a university hostel, and the police doesn't come up, despite the fact that that fact of lynching, which is now called in Bangladesh as mob justice, is taking place over hours and hours, then it really throws up the question that where is the police administration? And I think what they're doing is that they're basically silently indicating that they are not cooperating, they are not on board this particular government, because after all, everyone loves their jobs.
My final question to you, Kallol, two questions actually. One, how do you look at mainstream Indian television news's coverage of Bangladesh and what's happening right now? We're obsessed with it. In fact, I think we're talking about it way more than perhaps we're talking about things happening within India. There is this, of course, there's misinformation sometimes and all that, but there's a lot of polarized kind of reporting on genocide of Hindus in Bangladesh and how they're unsafe there. So what do you make of that, especially, the louder voices within the Indian media ecosystem? And the Indian government, how should the Indian government be looking at what's happening? Because this, like you said, we've had close ties with Bangladesh, very important neighbor, cultural ties also. I mean, it is not the relationship that we've shared with Pakistan, certainly. Very, very different relationship. So take these two questions.
Well, you see, if the Indian media has to be addressed first, then I would say that Bangladesh, if you are not a foreign affairs journalist, barring the beat of foreign affairs journalists, if I can say the star anchors of India or perhaps the star news makers of India, they don't really follow Bangladesh that much. That's
Mm.
my impression. Traditionally, they don't really look at Bangladesh. They are interested in what's happening in the United States, what's happening in Pakistan, big countries and big powers, and etc. Where cross-border terrorism from Pakistan. These are the issues that TV channels and big names are generally obsessed with. And now
Mm.
that they are suddenly finding that this peaceful, friendly, the biggest financial partner of India in South Asia is criticizing India and India's internal affairs, I think they are suffering, or they are indicating a lot of FOMO, that is fear of missing out, and they are jumping into the arena without really knowing much about
Mm.
the people and the society and the subject that they need to know first before really talking about it, because this is a very complex society, and a lot of the news that we hear on our some of the more loud TV channels essentially don't indicate that they have been following the country with some rigor in the recent past. They're just
Mm.
jumping in now into the debate because they have found finally a convenient handle of a minority issue, in Bangladesh. But there have been
Yeah.
so many other issues in Bangladesh. For example, just now the news that we are getting from Bangladesh is that Bangladesh Telecom Regulatory Authority may actually annul the telecom agreement that allows India to send internet signals to the northeastern region of India. Because the telecom connections coming from Singapore to Chennai is directed to northeast through Bangladesh, according to a TV according to TV report and also online report that are coming in. So it appears that there are a lot of things happening in Bangladesh about which Indian media could have spoken even before more loudly and more in a more articulate manner, but that did not happen. And now they are trying to perhaps catch the easiest handle
Yeah.
and
And at
grab
least
some
in the
attention.
coverage that I have seen, I think there's also coverage is focused not with a genuine sense of concern for minorities, including Hindus. Like you said, that there's Christians, there's Sufi shrines. So it's not with a genuine concern for minorities in Bangladesh, to my mind, but it's also to signal to an audience here, to dog whistle on Muslims.
Exactly,
A lot of the
exactly,
coverage is used to say that, look what can happen if majority Muslims, come near you. And of course, the
exactly,
Bangladeshi Ghuspetia, quote unquote, is a pet kind of a punching bag. Everything is, blamed on the Bangladeshi Ghuspetia in popular discourse and in
exactly.
politics today also. What about the Indian government? How has it become so difficult for us? This was a friend.
Yes, but
Where are we now, and what can we do to kind of, do you see
s-
relations improving, or it's over?
since you mentioned the term Ghuspetia, the fact is the term Ghuspetia was used first of all by leading individuals in the government itself.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of concern even within the Sheikh Hasina government about this sort of statements coming from leading figures of the Indian government because it was hurting public sentiment. And as
Mhm.
a political party, Awami League and its leaders were acutely aware that it was also hurting their political prospects in the long run. But
Hmm.
Sheikh Hasina took a conscious decision saying, I will not antagonize the leadership in India by addressing these difficult issues. And that was one of the reasons that contributed to Sheikh Hasina's the erosion of Sheikh Hasina's political stature. Because if
Hmm.
you are really a good friend, then I should be able to tell you that I don't really agree with certain things that you do.
Hmm.
You should also have that same approach to your good friends. That there should be a frankness when it comes to dialogue and discussion. That has not happened even under Sheikh Hasina, and that really contributed to diminution of her own power. Now, coming back to the government of India, I think the government of India in the last 3 and 4 months indicated some hesitation in engaging the Yunus government because it is not a full-fledged government. It is an interim government. So therefore, there was some hesitation about how to engage this government because engaging it also indicates that India is now recognizing it as a full and equal partner. I mean, of course, Prime Minister Modi has acknowledged and held there have been tweets and social media messages, etc., for Professor Yunus. But those are different when it comes to engaging in a real diplomacy. That's something that governments engage with at equal level. So now that the Foreign Secretary is proceeding to Dhaka on the 9th of December, we really have to see how it really turns out, because there are lots of elements in Dhaka who are really not in control of any forces. They're pretty much on their own. So as the Foreign Secretary undertakes this very risky mission to Bangladesh, one has to really wish him luck. But I also feel that this is a moment of turbulence in bilateral relation, and there will be a lot of media debates and social media outrages at the same time as he will be engaging with his counterparts in Bangladesh. But I think this has to be done because there are also other issues like Sheikh Hasina's continued presence in India,
Yes, in India.
which may come up at the international level. So India needs to mobilize support on the international front for for that particular issue. So I think it's a good thing to at least engage at the level of the Foreign Secretary.
Great. Thank you so much, Kallol, for joining us. I think my big takeaway actually is in the beginning how you described the situation of anarchy. And that's actually very scary to imagine. No police, no one in control, a complete devolution of law and order. And in such a situation, it's always the most vulnerable sections of society that are, targeted, that are the weakest.
Exactly.
And I think that is exactly what's happening in Bangladesh. In the situation of complete lawlessness, it is minorities who are having to face the biggest brunt. So thank you so much, Kallol, for joining us. We look forward to reading your bylines, and we look forward
Thank you
to reading
again.
more of your reporting on Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very kind of you.
Great. So that was Kallol. I hope it was useful, some of the things that we discussed with him. I would urge all our TV Newsance viewers to read newspapers. So usually whenever we are talking about news, we are talking about TV news में क्या चल रहा है और यहाँ पे क्या चीखम चिल्ली चल रही है, sensationalism चल रहा है. But if you really want to understand foreign relations, our relationship with foreign countries, what's really happening in South Asia or in other foreign countries, international news basically, जिसकी हमें बहुत मतलब अगर हम टीवी में देखें तो इंटरनेशनल न्यूज के नाम पे हमें किम जोंग उन या पुतिन का न्यूक्लियर बटन दबने वाला है टाइप न्यूज ही मिलती है. बट इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस टू बी अवेयर ऑफ व्हाट्स हैपनिंग इन द वर्ल्ड अराउंड अस. और इसके लिए please pick up newspapers. I'm a big supporter of newspapers like the Hindu, the Indian Express. They have details in terms of opinion pieces. They have reporters on ground also, explainers. So अगर आपको कुछ समझना है इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस के बारे में, इंडिया के या फॉरेन कंट्रीज में क्या हो रहा है, पॉलिटिक्स क्या चल रही है, साउथ कोरिया बहुत न्यूज में था इसी हफ्ते, तो पिक अप न्यूज़पेपर्स, यू विल बी बेटर इन्फॉर्म्ड. एंड if you have any questions for the next 10 minutes, I will take your questions on News Laundry and TV Newsance. So I'm happy to take questions from you, and I can read some comments that have come our way. And then, of course, I'm going to tell you why you all should subscribe to News Laundry, because that's the most important thing to do, especially before the year ends. This can be a good New Year resolution for you guys. कि साल खत्म होने से पहले आप कुछ अच्छा करेंगे. So we've got some comments. Somebody said, this is the first time I found a channel or show that accurately represents the real situation in Bangladesh amid abundance of propaganda from Indian news channels. Yes, that's what we're here for. We're here to bring some sense and calm tempers. Somebody's asked, Dinesh has asked, what are your views on Padmaja doing Hindi news anchoring now on TV9? Her anchoring has changed a lot. I haven't caught up with her anchoring in TV9 because I think she was online. I saw some videos, but I haven't seen her anchoring, so I shall watch it. But मैं क्या चीज हूँ? Why should I give my views? बड़े बड़े लोगों पे. But anyway, we'll give our news on TV Newsance if we have any. Somebody says that when I hear all this, what is happening in Bangladesh, I wonder whether I was born and raised in Bangladesh or not. Because this is not the Bangladesh what we've seen from my childhood. We live in harmony. I hope things turn for the better, honestly, even though right now it just doesn't seem like things are going to get better there. But I feel you, Sadia, and I hope things become better. I'm guessing you're from Bangladesh, so I hope things are better in your country. Another person has said the Indian media always spreads lies and propaganda against Bangladesh and Muslims. And why is BJP blindly supporting Sheikh Hasina? And India must have mutual respect for Bangladesh. I think maybe a lot of our views on India comes from the very loud television news channels, but that may not necessarily be the Indian view or even the Indian government's view, because I do think that politics is more pragmatic than prime time television. So hopefully we, see some sensible talk when it comes to an important neighbor like Bangladesh. Um, Pukhraj Roy says, how do you come up with such great one-liners for nuisance? Is it all riffing or a planned thing? So we have an excellent team on TV Nuisance. We have researchers, we have script writers, script writer actually. In fact, let me just introduce our team to you guys. We have Ishita Pradeep, who does a lot of research for us, Advik, who does research for us. They also sometimes write for us, in the sense that if I need an explainer on something, they'll give me pointers on that. Then we have Saeed, who writes the script also and also produces the show. So जो आपको मीम्स पसंद आते हैं अर्नब के, कि कहाँ कहाँ से हम ढूंढ के लाते हैं और कहाँ कहाँ से हम सुशांत के मीम्स लेके आते हैं, तो all that he looks at, does the production. We have 2 editors. Usually we have 2 to 3 editors. A team, depends. Every week it changes. But Satish and Sam are 2 very important editors on TV Nuisance. They've been working with us since the beginning of the show, since 2017. So जो भी बढ़िया एडिटिंग होती है, साउंड होता है, स्लो मो चीजें होती हैं, मीम्स होते हैं, जो भी पूरा लुक जो है प्रोडक्शन हमारा, वो ये दोनों एडिटर्स करते हैं. So it's thanks to all these guys that the show comes together. And one-liners is often, when we're discussing when we're doing a script reading or when we're discussing the show, so we bounce lines at each other and we come up with fun stuff. कभी-कभी spontaneous भी होता है, but ऐसा शो करने के लिए प्लानिंग बहुत जरूरी है. It can't be too spontaneous because then it'll be very unwatchable. So we do a lot of work behind the scenes, guys. We start working on Monday and we shoot the show on Thursday and then we take it out by Saturday. So बिल्कुल lightning speed में हम 30-minute का show करते हैं, about 4-5 people getting together. It's a lot of effort. So we don't have the resources that maybe another news organization may have. Like this, sometimes you guys talk about like foreign shows like Daily Show and all. Let me tell you, they have like 30 people on their team. They have 10 writers. We have like 2 writers. On a good day, 2 people work on the script. On a bad day, which means when we are busy doing many other things, because we are also doing other things in News Laundry, we have 1 person writing the script. So it's very hectic for us. A small team like TV Nuisance is very hard, but we do try and bring you the show every Saturday at 11 a.m. So you guys should support our endeavor because we could do with it. Who put the case on GN Sai Baba? Plainclothes men arrested. So we have a lot of reporting, Arvind, on GN Sai Baba on News Laundry. You can catch that. It's not related to the Bhima Koregaon case exactly, although there were a bunch of professors who were questioned around that time. But his case predates that. Ashish Deshpande says, Manisha, do you view religiously brainwashed middle class of our country? How do you view religiously brainwashed middle class? So, Ashish, I think it's important to not generalize. We just read a letter from Bangladesh, which talked about how anyone who's religious is seen as fundamentalist. I think that's an important distinction we should make. Religion is an important part of life for many people in South Asia, especially. This whole region, actually, religion has played a very important role. So I will not judge someone who's religious because it's your right. It's your belief. If it gives you comfort, you should. What I judge is politics around religion. Politicians using religion to divide people, news anchors using religion to divide people, people sowing seeds of prejudice among each other. So I think ऐसा हम नहीं सोचना चाहिए कि इंडिया में मिडिल क्लास सारा के सारा जो भी रिलीजियस है वो पागल है. बिकॉज लोग बहुत शांति से भी अपना रिलीजन प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, बहुत खुशी से भी करते हैं, त्योहार मनाते हैं, एक दूसरे से मिलजुलते हैं. तो इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट कीप दैट पॉजिटिविटी, आई थिंक, अराउंड innate goodness in people, I feel. But I think what we should really focus in is how religion is used by politics. Like just now, I think Yogi Adityanath had said that संभल को लेके उन्होंने जो बाबरी में हुआ वही संभल में हुआ, या बांग्लादेश में जो हो रहा है, नहीं, जो संभल में हुआ वो बांग्लादेश में भी हो रहा है, वो जी न्यूज है, ऐसे कुछ ऐसे शोज करते हैं, बट बेसिकली बार बार हेट फैलाना और लोगों को डिविजन्स, लोगों के बीच डिवीजन करना और पास्ट की बात करते रहना कि भाई मुगलों ने ये करा तो अब हम ये करेंगे मुसलमानों के साथ. सो दैट काइंड ऑफ रिटोरिक आई थिंक इज वेरी डेंजरस, which is mainly the fault, I think, in India of television news and politicians. Those are the two guilty people, I feel. And for Aam Janta, I feel like sometimes you're right, they're brainwashed also by what they're watching, what they're consuming on WhatsApp. But I would say that let's not call everyone religious as fundamentalist, or even every fundamentalist as a extremist or terrorist. The difference, nuances, and all of this. So Jatina says, please call Srinath Raghavan for an interview to discuss Bangladesh. Okay, thank you. We'll note that for Hafta. Any views on Pratap Bhanu Mehta's Tuesday article on Faith of South Asia? I love reading Pratap Bhanu Mehta, but I've missed this week's article, so I shall read it and I will discuss it in Hafta for sure. Manisha just wanted to ask, what is your take on Indian media handling the Adani issue, and wanted to add, I'm a subscriber and a big fan of Mr. Sekhri since 2019. Say my hello to NL team. Thank you. See, more and more people need to be like Sunil. They need to support News Laundry. They need to subscribe to News Laundry to support us. बिकॉज भाई आप लोग यूट्यूब में न्यूसेंस देखते हैं, टिप्पणी देखते हैं, आपको मजा आता है, आप लोग लाइक बटन प्रेस करते हैं, शेयर करते हैं, मीम्स भी बनाते हैं, लेकिन हम बिल्कुल ऐड यूट्यूब पे भी नहीं लेते हैं और उससे हमारा काम नहीं चलेगा. अगर आप रियली हमारे काम में बिलीव करते हैं, इफ यू रियली सपोर्ट अस, देन डू सब्सक्राइब, बिकॉज वो सब्सक्रिप्शन से ही हम शोज कर पाएंगे. और मैं मजाक नहीं कर रही हूँ, ऑनेस्टली अगर हमारे सब्सक्रिप्शन नीचे जाएं और अगर हमें हेल्दी नंबर ऑफ सब्सक्राइबर्स ना मिलें टू बी अ प्रॉफिटेबल कंपनी, हमको बहुत सारी चीजें कट करनी पड़ेंगी. शो शायद हर हफ्ते हम ना कर पाए, रिपोर्ट्स चाहे हम उतनी ना कर पाए. हम चाहते हैं कि न्यूज लॉन्ड्री में हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा ग्राउंड रिपोर्टिंग करें, वो हम कम करने लगेंगे, तो बहुत सारे कंस्ट्रेंट्स आ जाएंगे. सो टू कीप दैट, to keep us going, you guys need to support us. It's 500 rupees a month, and like I said, you get a lot of perks. You get free content, paywall content, very exciting. Like Hafta के बारे में जो लोग बात कर रहे हैं, lot of comments that have come talking about Hafta. NL Hafta is a premier paywalled podcast. आप बस हफ्ता सुन के आपकी पूरी हफ्ते की न्यूज काफी होगी. Just one podcast that will give you all the news you need for the week. That's behind the paywall. This time on Hafta, it's going to be free. It's going to be outside the paywall, so you can catch it on YouTube. Free होगा ये. चेतन भगत I think guest है इस बार. So you can watch that whole thing. It's going to be outside the paywall. You'll watch it on YouTube. It'll be like a 2-hour conversation with Jayashri, Abhinandan, Raman, Chetan Bhagat, and I think one more person has joined us on that podcast. I wasn't there this time, so I don't know who exactly came. But please watch it. It's great fun. And you can get पूरा हफ्ता का weekly dose of news आपकी एक podcast के साथ पूरी हो जाएगी. और ये भी हमारे सब्सक्राइबर्स के लिए है. तो 500 रुपए आप पे करें और आपको बहुत अच्छा paywall content मिलेगा. So please do that. Jatin says, this episode of Newsance was really helpful. From nuisance to nuance. Thank you. That's always our effort, to be a little nuanced and not always nuisansical. Okay. What is my opinion on Adani issue? The media, of course, I mean, what to say now? I mean, television news is just like Soros. So it's become a... So though there are two set ways in which they do. एक तो पहले की international conspiracy है, George Soros कर रहा है, या liberals कर रहे हैं, या राहुल गांधी ने बोला है George Soros को करने के लिए. Completely nonsensical. The second thing is, देखो markets के accordingly आप judge करेंगे कि आज market अच्छा कर रहा है तो no one cares about Adani. अरे no one, it's not a news story, which is a very stupid thing to do, because markets doing well or not should not define how you cover news. And reporting on Adani is for people who are on markets. I mean, it's public interest for everyone who's even dabbles in share markets. So yes. Now that was it for our show this week, TV Nuisance. Please go back to at the beginning and do listen to the little note that we played from the Hindu voice that we have gotten from Bangladesh, the little note that I read out. I think it's very important for all of us to listen to what that note is saying. How quickly your patriotism can be put to test and can be questioned, and how quickly you can feel that you are unsafe in your own country because a bunch of people decide that your patriotism will be judged on the basis on what we decide is patriotic. How you hoist your flag, or how you appear, what you religion you follow, उसके basis में हम आपका patriotism test लेंगे. कितना dangerous ideology है ये, और कितना unsafe कर देता है ये कितने लोगों को. It's very important to understand. So please, right at the beginning, listen to that note again. Thank you so much for joining TV Nuisance. This was a live endeavor. I hope you liked it. I know a lot of you say कि बहुत boring है, मजा नहीं आता, but कभी-कभी ऐसी चीजें करनी भी अच्छी होती हैं, because we get to interact, we get to talk, and we get to talk about something more. And I'd love to do more of this. So please comment and tell me कि ये करना चाहिए, नहीं करना चाहिए, कैसे-कैसे guests हम लाएं, अगर लाएं जिससे आपको भी मजा आए और आप questions भी पूछ सकें. Tell us all that in the comments. Please subscribe to News Laundry, guys. Let's have the QR code on. This is the QR code for Newsance ka subscription. You can scan it and you can do one good deed before the year ends. You subscribe to News Laundry. You get some amazing content. You get to support our journalism, and you get to support our shows like TV Newsance and Tippany that have no sponsorship, guys. आपको पता है कितना rare है इंडियन मीडिया लैंडस्केप में कोई भी शो करना विदाउट स्पॉन्सरशिप्स. लोग हंसेंगे आप पे कि अगर आप शो करने चले विदाउट एनी एड मनी, विदाउट एनी स्पॉन्सरशिप. हम लोग ये कर रहे हैं 5 साल से, और इसलिए कर रहे हैं बिकॉज वी नो यू गाइज विल सपोर्ट अस, यू गाइज विल बैक अस. वी डोंट नीड टू गो टू एनी एडवर्टाइजर्स. So please continue to show your support. Please subscribe to News Laundry, because honestly, if you don't do that, then we will not be able to stay mad. That's the only way, because we'll have to stop doing Newsance. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great weekend. Read good stuff. Read good articles on Bangladesh. Read good stories, long form reports, opinion pieces. Switch off your television. Don't watch that. Educate yourself on what's happening in your neighboring country. With that, I shall leave you guys. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be back next week. Until then, stay mad. That's the only way.